system to a ring of gray matter on the medial aspect of the cerebral hemisphere. So this limbic system lies in the medial aspect of the cerebral hemisphere. Then Papez, James Papez, he defined a limbic system that might underlie the relationship between the emotion and memory. So he defined the limbic system that play a relationship between the emotion and memory. So limbic system consists of two important structures. One is the limbic lobe and second the related subcortical nuclei. In the limbic lobe, you will find cingulate gyrus, isthmus, hippocampal gyrus, and uncus. Uncus is the anterior part of parahippocampal gyrus. So we have four important structures in the limbic lobe. Then related subcortical nuclei are amygdala, septal nuclei, hypothalamus, then anterior nucleus of thalamus. So here also you have four important structures related to the subcortical nuclei. And all these cortical and subcortical nuclei, they form a ring around the brain stem. So we can see these structures. Here you can see this is the medial aspect of the cerebral hemisphere. So you can see this is the cingulate gyrus. Then here you'll find the mammillary body. This structure is the hippocampus. This is the parahippocampal gyrus. If you see the detailed view, then you will find hypothalamic nuclei lies here. Then cingulate gyrus, you will find the cingulate gyrus. Then anterior nucleus of thalamus. Then mammillary body, you will find the mammillary body. Hippocampus. Then parahippocampal gyrus. Then amygdala, olfactory bulb. So these are the various limbic system structures. Limbic system, here we can also find few important structures like the cingulate gyrus, then amygdala, hippocampus, then you can see the septal nuclei. Earlier, this limbic system is known as the rhinencephalon because of its relation to the olfaction. But only a small part of it is concerned with the smell. Phylogenetically, limbic system is made of the oldest part of the cerebral cortex. It is known as the allocortex, and here you will find only 3 layers, while new cortex you will find 6 layers. So we have various functions of the limbic system. It controls the autonomic functions, then motivation, then it is also important for the behavioral aspect of hunger and sex, then concern with olfaction and memory, emotion of rage or fear. Then we have the unique features. So what is the unique feature is here? The neocortical activity does modify emotional behavior, but it cannot be turned on and off at will. So by saying this, that the cortex can modify the emotional behavior, but it cannot turn on and off the emotion. So it is just like that neocortex sit with a leg on each side of the limbic system, like a rider on a horse without the control. So second unique feature is it shows prolonged after discharge. So once the emotion is there, it is for a longer duration. So after discharge is prolonged. So how we can define the emotion? So it is derived from a Latin word, emovere, meaning to stir up or to agitate. Now it is an affective experience that accompanies generalized inner adjustment and mental and physiological stir up states in the individual, and that show itself in his overt behavior. So Papez circuit has been identified by James Papez in 1930, and these limbic structures involved in the genesis of emotion. We added the thalamic structure to the limbic lobe. Now, because of this Papez circuit, one can experience the emotion, and simultaneously you'll also find there is a production of the autonomic changes of the emotion. This is the Papez circuit. In the Papez circuit, you will find various structures are there. We start from the fornix. The fornix is the main projection from the hippocampus, uncus, and amygdala. So from hippocampal formation, it will go to the mammillary body. Then other hypothalamic nuclei, septal nuclei, substantia innominata, that is the basal nucleus of Maynard's. Then you'll find one tract is going, mammillothalamic tract. This tract is going from mammillary body. So mammillo going to the anterior thalamic nuclear group. So thalamic. So mammillothalamic tract. And from here it will go to the cortex of cingulate gyrus. Then it will go to the para-hippocampal gyrus. And from para-hippocampal gyrus, it will go to the hippocampal formation. And again, you'll find the fornix comes. So it is some kind of the circuit. This circuit is important for the emotion, recent memory, and the emotion. This mammillothalamic tract is also known as the bundle of Vic. He is he's a French anatomist, and because of him, this bundle has been named. Recently, amygdala has been also introduced into the Papez circuit. So it is known as the extended Papez circuit. So this recently extended Papez circuit has been described, in which focus has been shifted to main role of amygdala in genesis of emotion. So you find extended Papez circuit. Now this Papez circuit has the connection with the hypothalamus, Then it also connected to the bulbar autonomic centers. It is important for the production of the autonomic changes in relation to the emotion. The reticular formation is also connected with the Papez circuit. It modifies somatic motor neuronal activity appropriate. Now, emotion has components. It has mental component. It also have the physical component. As far as the mental component is concerned, you'll find cognition. One is aware of the process of thinking, perceiving, awareness of the sensation or the cause. What is the affect? It is a reflection of mental state, feeling itself. Then cognition, force which direct to take action and involves us to take action. We'll take one example. I hear a noise which I recognize as that of an exploding bomb. Now here we find it is a cognition. Why it is a cognition? Because we are aware of the process. So I recognize a noise. I recognize that noise and as that of an exploded bomb. So as we are aware of the process of thinking, so it is a cognition. I feel frightened. It is affect. Why affect? Because it is the reflection of the mental state feeling itself. So I feel frightened. It is a reflection of the mental state. So it is the affect. I want to take a shelter. So it is a cognition. So cognition is the force which direct to take action and involve us to take action. So I want to take a shelter. So it is a force which direct me to take some kind of the shelter. So it is a cognition. Now emotion also have the physical component. There is a changes in the viscera and the skeletal muscles. There is also changes in the autonomic and the somatic nervous system. In the autonomic, you'll find the sympathetic and parasympathetic, both are involved. So emotions, we have various kind of emotion like the fear, grief. Now in the fear, you'll find there is an increase in the heart rate, respiration, cutaneous vasoconstriction, sweating. The center for fear reaction are located in hypothalamus and amygdala. Then there's an increase in the nasal and lacrimal secretion. The skin become pale. Now, as far as the anxiety is concerned, the seat of anxiety is the frontal part of temporal lobe. You can use few drugs to relieve anxiety. You can use the benzodiazepine, which is anxiolytic. By saying that anxiolytic means it decreases the anxiety. So because of this anxiolytic drug, uh, the mechanism of action of this drug benzodiazepine is by increasing the chloride conductance in these receptors. In the fear, you'll find various autonomic responses like the sweating, pupillary dilation, then bending and turning head from side to side to look for escape. It is also known as the avoidance reaction or the fleeing reaction. You have observed that when some kind of the punishment is given to your younger brother or sister, then what he will do? He will turn head from side to side. You try to escape from the situation. So this is a avoidance reactions. Now the same kind of the situation can be arised by the stimulation of hypothalamus and amygdaloid nucleus. And if you destroy the amygdaloid nucleus, the fear is absent. Then there is another emotion, rage. There is a hissing, spitting, growling, piloerection, pupillary dilation, biting, clawing, that all these things occur in the animals. In human being also there. You'll find the rage, roadside rage is a very common thing in daily. So what will happen in the rage? One person will beat another person or a minor issue. So rage is a fighting or attacking action. So this is also an example of the rage. Here this cat is about to fight or about to attack on someone other. Now rage, it is a fighting or the attacking reaction. It is the extreme anger. It is not the anger. It is the extreme anger or the violent anger. The anger which makes the person to beat or to kill another person or to harm other person. The word opposite to rage is the placidity, tameness, or mildness. Now you'll find the rage response to minor stimuli. So you'll find various structure has been described, like the removal of the neocortex. Then you'll find the destruction of ventromedial hypothalamic nucleus, stimulation of area around the posterolateral hypothalamus, then destruction of amygdaloid nucleus. So we'll discuss about the ventromedial hypothalamic nucleus. We have discussed in the hypothalamic chapter. So this is concerned to sense the satiety and decrease eating behavior. Now, if you have the bilateral lesion in the ventromedial nucleus, it will cause excessive drinking, then eating, as well as you will also notice frequent bouts of extreme rage on the slightest provocation. Now we'll come about the lateral hypothalamus. So this lateral hypothalamus stimulation also result in the rage. So lateral hypothalamus also has been discussed earlier. So it causes the thirst and eating, but it also increasing the general level of activity of the animal, leading to rage and fighting. And if there is a bilateral lesion in the lateral hypothalamus, it will decrease drinking and eating almost to zero, often leading to lethal starvation. These lesions cause extreme passivity of the animal as well, with loss of most of its overt drive. Then few words regarding the amygdaloid nucleus. So basically this amygdaloid nucleus receives neural signal from all part of the limbic cortex, then as well as from the neocortex of the temporal, parental, occipital lobe, but especially from the auditory and the visual association areas. And because of these multiple connections, amygdala has been called window through which limbic system sees the place of person in the world. Now the bilateral destruction or ablation or lesion of the amygdala in monkey called the change in behavior, and there's a one syndrome, Kluwer-Bucy syndrome. We'll discuss these little later. Then you'll also find the race after the destruction of septal nuclei, then with the gonadal hormone androgen. Then you'll also surprised to know that placidity produced by the bilateral amygdaloid destruction is converted into rays by subsequent destruction of ventromedial nuclei of hypothalamus. So placidity can be converted into rays by destroying the ventromedial nucleus of hypothalamus. You have observed various criminals, violent criminals. So they have very lower activity in the prefrontal cortex than normal. So we have the hypothalamus and the limbic system. They work together. They work together for genesis of emotion and the motivated behavior. Now, this emotion and motivated behavior are very crucial for survival. Emotional behavior or responses modulate the autonomic nervous system to respond to threatening stimuli or situation. Emotional responses are adaptive. If you are prepared to deal with the threatening stimuli, you are more likely to survive and reproduce. So we'll take the individual role of hypothalamus, cortex, and the limbic system in the genesis of emotions. So hypothalamus help regulate the basic physiological needs. It regulates the body temperature through influence both of the autonomic nervous system and of brain circuits, directing motivating behavior that seek a warmer or the cooler environment. Then it regulates the energy metabolism through influence on feeding, digestion, and metabolic rate. Then it also regulates the reproduction through hormonal control of mating, pregnancy, and lactation. It also controls the blood pressure and electrolyte, drinking and salt, appetite. It also directs responses to stress by influencing blood flow to specific tissue and by stimulating the secretion of adrenal stress hormone. So what is the role of cerebral cortex? The cerebral cortex is important for detailed processing of the emotional feeling. It will also important to approach or avoid the situation. Sometimes we avoid the situation, sometimes we approach the situation, and this thing is done by the cerebral cortex. Then there is a modulation, understanding, or the inhibition of the emotional. Then what is the role of limbic system? Now, limbic system is important for the elaboration and integration of activity. It is important for elaboration of emotion. Frontal lobe of cortex, it provides rational control of emotional disposition and involved in personality. Injury to frontal lobe causes the changes in personality, control of emotion and impulse control, and the example are the Phineas Gage. So Phineas Gage, he was a American foreman. Accidentally, a large iron rod was inserted into his left frontal lobe. So he observed change in personality in the remaining 12 years of his life. So here's the Phineas case, and here we find the iron rod is inserted into left frontal lobe, and because of this we find there's a change in his personality. So with this we'll come to the motivation. Motivation processes which are responsible for goal-directed behavior that which move the will, our reward system, approach system, individual work for, behavior that lead to them occur more often. Then there is a punishment avoidance system. Individual try to avoid, individual try to escape from an odd, painful or life-threatening situation. So basically we have the two systems, award system and the punishment system. So with this now we'll come to the various theories of the emotions. Actually, this emotion has been described by various workers and various theories has been proposed, and no one is correct and explain all the things that occur in the emotion. But few theories are important. The very first theory is the common sense theory. So some stimulus is coming to you, say dog is coming to you, and this dog is about to bite you. So what will happen? Some fear occur. This is subjective experience occur. And because of this, you'll find your body response occur. This is arousal. So you report, my heart is pounding because I feel afraid. Here the afraid comes first. So this is the common sense theory. The next theory is the James Lang theory. Now same dog is coming towards you to bite your body part. So here the response is the body response. It is the arousal. And because of this arousal, there is a fear. And this fear is a subjective experience. So now you report that I feel afraid because my heart is pounding. So here the body response occurs first. Then we have the Cannon-Bar theory. It says that as dog is coming toward you, now you have the body response, arousal, and the subjective experience almost the same time. And now you report that dog make me feel afraid and my heart pounds. There's another theory, two-factor theory. And as per this theory, first response is a body response, that is the arousal. But instead of going directly to the body response, there's an interpretation, and then there's a fear. So now you report that my pounding heart means I am afraid because I interpret the situation is dangerous. We also have the Arnold theory, and this theory was given in 1966, and his concept was known as the sequential model. So various steps involved in the genesis of emotion are perception of the stimulus, then appraisal, stimulus is beneficial or harmful, determining emotions with regard to situation, then expressing emotions, also accompanying physiological responses, and finally, they all give an idea to approach a situation or not. So with this, now we are coming to this motivation part. We take one rat in a box with a lever, and this lever is a connection to the brain area. So we can use the same rat or different rat to fix this wire to different brain area. So by the help of pressing this lever, this circuit is complete, and we are able to stimulate that particular brain area. So we have different area. So stimulation of the different area will have different kind of the response. Either we can have no response. This rat press this lever and there is no response. Then this rat will not press it again. Then the thing will occur accidentally. The second situation is that this rat pressed this lever and he got stimulation of that particular brain area and he feels happy. So now this rat will press it again and again. So it is some kind of the reward for him. So this rat will press this lever again and again with the intention to achieve the pleasure. The third situation is that this rat presses this lever, and now after the stimulation of that brain area, he don't get the pleasure. Rather, he got the displeasure. He got the shock. He got the fear. So now this rat will not press this lever again. He will try to not pressing this lever because this rat now understood that if this rat press this lever, then some kind of a displeasure will happen. So this electrical cell stimulation and the reward system has been described by the James Olds and Peter Milner, and he found that brain stimulation through part of the hypothalamus and related structure can act as a reinforcer. By saying the reinforcer means they can increase the positive or the negative behavior. This stimulation work independent of drive state, hunger, and has been replicated in many brain areas. So the key point regarding in this study is that brain stimulation activate neuron in the ventral tegmental area. Now these are the midbrain dopamine neuron that form most of the mesolimbic and mesocortical projections involved in the reward. Now, stimulation of these neurons leads to dopamine release, and rat will often choose self-stimulation over the food and sex. So the brain area where the stimulation leads to repeated bar pressing. So you'll find the median forebrain bundle, the rat will press the lever, say 5,000 times per hour. Then midbrain tegmentum, then prefrontal cortex, then nucleus accumbens, then dorsal brain stem, then ventral tegmental area. The brain area where the stimulation lead to repeated bar pressing. It means that rat is getting some kind of the pleasure or relief of the tension or a quite relaxed feeling. Brain area where the stimulation is avoided. Lateral portion of the posterior hypothalamus, then dorsal midbrain, then entorhinal cortex. The sensation ranging from vague fear to terror. The self-stimulation increase in food deprivation, decrease in castration. By saying the castration means removal of testes. So it will decrease in castration, restored by administration of the sex hormone. Castration has been done, it is a matter of practice in certain animals. So we'll discuss now the role of the neurotransmitter. So various neurotransmitters have been described like the dopamine, norepinephrine, morphine, enkephaline. Now, drug of abuse increase the dopamine release in the brain, like the cocaine, amphetamines increase the dopamine release in the brain, especially in the shell of nucleus accumbens. Nucleus accumbens shell receive the dopaminergic input from midbrain dopaminergic neuron, and it projects to the hypothalamus and limbic structure, mediating the emotional response. Both drugs appear to work by blocking the dopamine transporter responsible for dopamine reuptake, thus leaving dopamine present in the synapse. So basically, they block the dopamine transporter, which is responsible for dopamine reuptake. Drug of abuse increase the dopamine release in brain. Nicotine. You have noticed that so many people, they consume nicotine, they use the cigarettes. So this also increases the dopamine. So why they are using the cigarette and nicotine? Because the dopamine concentration increase in their brain and they feel happy. Some kind of the euphoria. By saying the euphoria means sense of well-being is there. Then habit-forming substance like the morphine, heroin, cocaine, nicotine, all they increase the dopamine in the brain area, particularly nucleus accumbens. Chlorpromazine hydrochloride large active. It lower the catecholamine activity and increase the self-stimulation. The main role of action is nucleus accumbens. So with this, now we'll come to one syndrome that is known as Kluver-Bucy syndrome. Now it is a rare neurobehavior disorder associated with the bilateral destruction of anterior part of the temporal lobe of the brain. This removes not only the portion of the temporal this removes not only the portion of the temporal cortex but also of amygdalas that lies inside these parts of the temporal lobe. The anatomical basis is that amygdala lies deep within the medial temporal lobe of the brain. So we have the centromedial amygdala project to the stria terminalis, primarily to the hypothalamus. So with this stria terminalis, this amygdala is connected to the hypothalamus, and by the help of the ventral amygdalofugal tract, it is connected to the brainstem, and there it includes the hormonal and the somatomotor aspect of the behavior and the emotional states like the eating, drinking, and sex. So this is a temporal lobe syndrome. We have various in the various features you will find there is hyperphagia, there is excessive eating is there, then hypersexuality is also there, then hypermetamorphosis is there. By saying the hypermetamorphosis means that animal fails to ignore the peripheral stimuli and therefore respond to every stimulus and explore everything compulsory. It will compulsorily exploit everything. Then we have the aphasia. There is an inability to understand or produce the speech as a result of brain damage. Then visual agnosia. This is the inability to recognize familiar object or the people. Then we also have the dreaming states, increased oral activity, then the auditory disturbances. So experimentally it has been produced in the monkey, and here the temporal lobe is removed. Amygdalas have been also removed. Then you find so many changes are there: visual agnosia, decreased oral tendency, there's a decreased emotional reactions, hypersexuality, and there's a hypermetamorphosis. Same thing in human being is rare, but can be produced by the temporal lobectomy, where this thing is required medically as a result of some accident or tumors. Same thing can also be observed with the meningoencephalitis, acute herpes simplex, or following a stroke, toxoplasmosis, or AIDS. So here you find human being, you'll find the placidity is there, hyperorality is there. By saying the hyperorality means that person will pick and explore in his mouth. Then dietary changes they are present within an inability to recognize object or inability to recognize faces or other memory disorder. So with this, I end this lecture. I thank you for listening. Thank you very much.